There are so many different ways to be farming raw gold in the Mist of Pandaria pre-patch, and today I will share even more methods. If you haven't watched part 1, I would highly recommend you to do that as well, and in that video there were a lot of positive feedback, so thank you so much, and I were also glad to see that so many people were actually interested in a part 2. And a common question, what is the add-on I'm using for tracking the raw gold I'm making? It's called Kiwi Farm. The first spot I'm going to share with you is the instance Halls of Lightning, which can be found in Northrend. Just like in part 1, then I will speed up the whole process by increasing the speed of the video, or well, the clip I'm showing you right here. And in this first room, you would like to pull as much as possible, but it's not that important to kill the first boss yet, as we will be coming back to this location at the end of the instance. But the reason for pulling them here is because our line of sight and these creatures will knock you back and stun you as well, so it's gonna be important that you line of sight them. Next, you wanna pull this room, including the second boss in the instance. Once I've pulled everything, I drag this to the boss location, where I will also finish it off. There isn't really many things to pay attention to, besides your health bar, of course. I've also seen some of you ask me about why I'm not doing this on heroic mode. Remember, when you do an instance on heroic mode, you can only do it once a day, as you'll end up being saved. That's why I'm doing all of this on normal, so I can just continue over and over. At this boss, you would like to use all your cooldowns, so you can avoid the transition, as this is where you will also end up spending a lot of time if you have to go through everything here, just like I do. I'll have to wait until it goes into phase 2, then I can finish off the boss and loot everything, but it will also slow me down a bit. That's why I like to keep my cooldowns, so I can avoid this transition. In the next room, there are so many creatures you can pull, and I would highly recommend you only to pull these line of sight and finish them off, else you will most likely end up dying. All of this depends on your gear, but on this character my average item level is only 381, that's why I'm also being careful. So if your item level were way higher, you could probably pull everything here, including the final boss in this dungeon. But in this case, I'm just splitting it up, also because I have a decent amount of time before I need to reset and go into the next instance. When you pull Logan, you just drag him behind the pillar, as this will line of sight everything else, so you're stacking them together and you can start cleaving. In this case, my inventory was also full, simply because I tried the dungeon so many different times to figure out what would be the perfect way for me to be running. Once you have looted these things, you can then jump down here, and this takes you to the first room, where we can also pull the boss if you didn't manage to do it the first time you were here. My average gold is close to 2000 every single hour, but do remember I also ended up spending a bit of time deleting items to make room. But yeah, it is definitely decent, also because pretty much right outside this instance you will be able to sell at a window, where you will also find the nearby Flight Master. Don't forget that this add-on is counting raw gold, so if I were rendering everything, in this case I will of course also sell some of these items on the auction house, as the Eternals and also cloth will make you a lot of additional gold. The next instance is also located in Northrend. This time it's Gundrak, which can be found in the area called Gundrak. When you jump down here, you gotta be aware you will also be taking a lot of damage if you don't have slow fall or reduce fall damage taken, so aim for the water as another class. You wanna pull these 3 patrols and drag them to the first boss location, where we will also be finishing them off. Yeah, you don't really need to activate any cooldowns here, as it's a rather small pool. But what you would like to be aware of is that once you have finished this and also looted everything, you need to click on the altar, else you won't be able to get to the final boss location. Next is going to be one of those larger pools, and this is why I also kept my cooldowns for this. All of these creatures you want to drag to the second boss, and then you want to engage the second boss, as there's going to be transition time here. This is where I usually also activate my cooldowns, and if you have skinning, you can also be skinning some of these creatures in between each transition. Click on the altar and move on. When you usually do this dungeon, you jump into the water down there, but in this case you would like to pull as much as possible. This is why I'm also running the way I am. Basically also because the dungeon is rather short, so by skipping all of these and jumping into the water, you will at some point also hit the dungeon cap and won't be able to reset for probably 10 to 20 minutes. What I like a lot about Gundrak is that the moment you kill the final boss, you will basically also be at the exit and able to reset and go once more. But when you kill this boss, you want to make sure you are once again also clicking on the altar. Now you have clicked on all three and you will be able to go to the platform that takes you to the final location. In most cases, I'm making around 17 to 1800 gold an hour, but it of course also depends on your luck. In this case, I were not lucky at all. If I had got weapons, it would usually be around 2000 gold an hour. Once you have slain these creatures, and if you have leftover time, you could also be skinning these, and then you leave through here. Then you reset the instance, and what's amazing is that you just fly in this direction, and you will be at the entrance once again. Wrath of the Lich King dungeons are honestly amazing, especially Pit of Saron, which can be found in here and to your right. Not only does it grant you a lot of raw gold, but you also have a chance to get the Battered Hilt, an item that begins a quest where you're also getting an achievement. It is a rather expensive epic item, even in Mist of Pandaria. There's one thing you need to be aware of. This dungeon were also introduced in the last phase of Wrath of the Lich King. In other words, these creatures are honestly doing quite a bit of damage, and that's why I'm not doing massive pulls. Especially if you're a fresh level 85 character, take your time. If you have insane heroic raiding gear, then you can probably pull a lot more than I am, but here I'm just taking my time and getting used to everything. One of the biggest benefits about Pit of Saron is that you can use your ground mount at the entrance, and for the remaining dungeon, or well, the remaining part I'll be showing you in this guide. Because I usually skip the last boss in the dungeon as there's going to be too much roleplay, therefore also downtime, and you will be all the way at the back. Therefore you will also end up spending a lot of time going all the way back to the entrance, and this will reduce the gold you make every single hour. On this one, you gotta be aware of the poison and always make sure you're moving out of this. You can pull all the nearby creatures, as it's not really too difficult as long as you're avoiding the poison. There is in fact yet another big benefit. You're always being granted epic items from these bosses, where in another dungeon you would be guaranteed rare items. And what I like about epic items is that these are also usually selling, or well, rendering for 2 to 3 times as much. This is why this is also such a good dungeon. Even though my average gold is close to only 1000 right now, then don't worry, the moment you get one of these epic items, it's also going back to above 1500 gold. And we still have 1 to 2 massive pulls to be performing. The reason why I'm saying 1 to 2 is because all of this depends on your gear, but also remaining cooldowns. If your session time is close to 4 minutes, like it is in my case, then you're also not in a hurry. So why do a massive pull where there's a way higher chance you could also end up dying? But if you're in a hurry, you could add these to the first pull I just did and finish them off. What I've also not mentioned you about this dungeon is that there's a fairly high chance you will be getting bind on pickup epics. The epics we will also be rendering, but these are usually adding so much more gold, and why you can expect to make close to 2000 if you have a bit of luck. On average, I would still say it's close to 1700. But this is without counting anything being sold on the auction house or you getting the Battered Hilt. As of today, where I'm recording and also posting this video, it's July 7th. As of yesterday, a couple of people claimed that some of the farms I did in part 1 were no longer working, including karazhan. Therefore, I've also decided to retest this, but also to show you my new route to figure out if this has been nerfed or still working. This time I move into the ballroom, followed by the hall, where in part 1 I were moving into the area with all the beds. Once I've pulled those creatures in here, I'll then be moving into the kitchen area, or whatever we call this. This is where I line of sight, pop my cooldowns, and finish them off, also because some of these will still be stunning you. What I've also noticed here is that because we're pulling so many creatures, then you will also automatically be bugging out your auto loot, or well, mass looting. This is why some of you might also be thinking you're not making a lot of gold if you don't pay attention to this. So make sure you have actually looted everything, even though there is mass looting introduced in the pre-patch. So for those of you saying that this farm has been nerfed as of today, or well, yesterday, this is not correct at all. I mean, my average gold are now higher compared to what I did in the first video, but this is of course also because I've been optimizing my route even further. The moment I've made sure I've looted everything here, I'll then be moving back into the hall, but also the ballroom, where I'll be pulling the remaining enemies if I got to. These I'll be dragging up these stairs, and here, if you don't have good gear or a lot of cooldowns, you could just be finishing off everything in this room. Else, you can continue like I do right here, and pull everything in the Opera Hall as well. I've also seen people ask me about chain stunts, and why they're getting stunned until they die. Well, this is if you do a massive pull and it takes longer than 1 minute. Or well, it's actually a bit more complicated. Let's say you do a massive pull, then the first creature you pulled will get a stun buff after 1 minute. The next creature you pull will also be getting a stun buff after 1 minute. So if your pull takes longer than 1 minute, then the first creature will start stunning you, and the second creature will now also get a stun buff, and it continues to spread until you'll simply end up dying. Yeah, I know my English isn't really too good. I'm practicing and trying to learn every single day, but I hope this explanation made sense. I mean, just make sure your pull are taking less than 1 minute and you should be fine. Alright, the moment you get to this area, we are also at the location I did as the first part in video 1. So I've pretty much also done the route backwards, but with optimization. Here we can also use skinning on all these beasts, and this can easily make you 500 to 1000 additional gold an hour. Next, there's only one more pull to go, and all of these creatures you would like to drag to the entrance, or well also the exit. And these creatures, we're then finishing off at that location, we reset and go once again. For those of you wondering, there's also a nearby NPC where you can sell all the different items you find. This NPC can be found right outside the raid. So if you enjoyed this guide, make sure to smash the like button and also subscribe if you would like to see a lot more useful Mr. Pandaria guides very soon. This will also help me a lot as a content creator, so I can spend even more time on new videos. As always, thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day. Peace.